My project will be exploring the relationships between humans and animals, both domesticated and wild, and the different ways we engage with them. I believe that animals are only of significance to us when they are humanized and clearly share human aspects that attach us to them emotionally. This idea has been drawn from Damien Hirst's art installation piece titled Mother and Child Divided. This particular artwork saw a cow and her calf euthanized and split lengthwise down the middle, allowing the audience to see the organs and insides of each animal, which was done in the name of art, as said by Damien Hirst himself. When we think of cows, we think of the massive cattle industry that provides us with endless dairy and beef goods to sustain us. These cuts of meat are not animals to us, as a society, because we didn't grow up with that cow or give it a name or see its final day. That's why Hirst's artwork is so interesting to me and why it is such a huge influence on my project. In order to explore the relationship between people and animals, I will be creating a photo series of people and their pets, accompanied by interviews of them discussing their connection to their animal. I really want to encapsulate people's connection with domestic pets such as cats, dogs, and birds. I then want to contrast this uplifting and overly trusting perspective to their view on wild animals. The negative light that may be shed on wild animals that are typically domestic, like wild cats and dogs, will showcase the standard which we hold domestic animals compared to wild animals. This viewpoint is not necessarily unjust and frankly is very understandable. I personally stay far away from wild cats and dogs, but I find the dehumanization of these wild animals is what generates fear within society. I don't speak for all people. We tend to separate the natural world from the domestic world, generally in the name of safety. To portray this divide, I will develop a photo series which will be viewed in order of the owners and their pets in a single photograph each. I hope to accumulate 5 or 7 of these. I like to keep the numbers odd. And then the same type of animal, but homeless or stray, wandering the streets or bush by itself. And I hope to humanize these creatures for the audience and break down some of the stigma surrounding wild animals and domestic animals, as all animals should be wild. I'm not, however, going to release my pet bird, but I can acknowledge the hypocrisy in what I'm saying. Accompanying this will be an interview with each of the owners and their views on wild animals compared to the views of their domesticated animals. I really want to expose the fact that we as a society agree that wild animals are dirty or unhealthy or sick, and our own pets that get dirty and unhealthy and sick are inherently cleaner and thus safer. But the issue is that these pets should be in the wild, and they should have been there for years now. It is much too late for domesticated animals to integrate back into the wild due to their reliance on human influence. Young Hare by Albrecht Dürer shows us that wild animals are as human as any of us. This painting in particular expresses an extremely grumpy hare, which is captured by the posture and stern eyes on the animal. It's a little bit roughed up on the outside, like how we perceive many wild animals, and yet it is still able to communicate an emotion to us. Albrecht Dürer said, quote, "Nature holds the beautiful, thus beauty lies even in humble, perhaps ugly things." I further want to explore the duality of light and dark, or good and evil, as domesticated pets are inherently good and kind and sweet or lazy and grumpy, whereas wild animals are depicted without such ties to humans, and are thus dehumanized because they are without emotion in our eyes, which is simply untrue. This project will be perfect for a group of people to tackle, as we are all isolated, so we can explore the nature and surroundings close to us and find areas that lend themselves to wild animals to photograph. We can explore the nature and surroundings close to us and find areas that lend themselves to wild animals and photograph not only the creature, but the journey in which we found it, which could bring up a further point of the removal of wild animals that are typically domestic inside of urban areas as a result of these dehumanizing stigmas surrounding wild animals, being that they are evil and violent and dirty, which are true, but that's how they should be. Cats and dogs did not start out as gentle, friendly domestic creatures, and we need to remember this as a group in order to explore this project to the best of our combined abilities. I hope that we humanize wild animals, rather than just point out the difference in standards between wild and domestic creatures.
Not much of a dog lover. I like the look of them, but once you can smell them, it's all over. I would be terrified if I saw a stray dog. I think dogs are more aggressive. A dog, if it felt threatened, would attack.
My issue with stray animals is that I do not want to get diseases, not that I am inherently afraid. Even our domesticated bird still has a desire to fly. Similarly, we have another bird that is very territorial in the same sense that any kind of wild creature is. If I was to see a stray animal, is it feral? If it didn't have a collar or anything, I'd presume it to be stray. I once found an injured lorikeet outside of my high school. It was pouring down with rain while myself and 2 friends walked to the nearest vet, and my friend put it in his pocket to keep it warm. If right now I was to see a big birdie boy on the street somewhere unwell, I wouldn't go up to it. It was a tiny little lorikeet, vulnerable. Catching a dog is much more difficult than an injured bird, where if I'd seen an injured dog or cat, maybe my approach would be different, but just to see a stray one, who says it wants to be caught?